Bringing in six figures is the dream for many freelancers and solopreneurs. Writing a book is the dream for many coaches and business people. Ryan Guthrie is living the dream. He has built a six-figure business as a ghostwriter, helping entrepreneurs and coaches become authors and set themselves apart by putting their insights and experience on the page. Welcome to Notes from a Ghost, a podcast about stories and the people who tell them. My name is Charlie, and I'm a ghostwriter. I love a good story. I hope you enjoy this one. Ryan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, let's start with the money. How can a writer build a six-figure business doing what they love?
Yeah, there are lots of people that wish they could use writing to build a six-figure income, and there's quite a few ways to do it actually. I know when I first got started in entrepreneurism, I was a freelance copywriter, and I did that, and then I was a marketing consultant who did copy and stuff like that, and then I dabbled my toes into ghostwriting with one client that I was working with, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And so I pivoted my whole business to that and started doing that. I started, my pricing was horribly low. My price, the first book that I ever did was like 4 times lower of a fee than I recommend new writers to even start with. But did that, built up the fees, kept getting new clients, and eventually built it up to the point where it's a multiple six-figure business.
Out of curiosity, what is the fee you would recommend a new writer charge?
So if you are new to the world of ghostwriting and maybe you have a little writing experience behind you or something like that, $10,000 to $15,000 is not too crazy of a fee to ask for. My first book was 5, and I think that was a horrible undercharge on my part. But 10 to 15 is pretty solid, and you'll find out there and this is for like good quality ghostwriting. This isn't like I found someone off of Fiverr or something like that. This is like the big leagues of like actual real competent ghostwriters that are not only good writers but also can guide you through the publishing industry and stuff like that. Um, there are certain websites and agencies and stuff like that, and they say, if you're hiring a ghostwriter, don't hire one under $20,000 or $25,000 because you're not going to get a good manuscript. And ghostwriting is one of those things where you very much get what you pay for. So if you're new, you can be that diamond in the rough who's good at what they do, and they charge $10,000 to $15,000, and your client's gonna be really really happy with that. But I wouldn't stay there for very long. Say get to $20,000 to $25,000 per book relatively quickly, and then you can kind of go from there.
Nice. You have said that you were bad at college, which same here. Um, Tell me about your path to ghostwriting and, what would you say to someone who has terrible imposter syndrome because they're coming from an unconventional background. They didn't do an MFA or whatever.
So first of all, funny thing about imposter syndrome is it never goes away. You'll never reach a point in your career where you're like, oh, sweet, I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. Like I struggle with this still. People that charge a whole heck of a lot more than me still struggle with imposter syndrome. It never goes away, but instead I like to look at imposter syndrome as this big, ugly, nasty road sign that says, hey, you're heading in the right direction, right? If you feel the imposter syndrome, you feel that fear, you feel a little bit inadequate, you're probably going in a direction that's going to force you to grow, and ultimately that's a good thing. But yes, I was very bad at college. I was able to kind of skate by through high school, not really put forth a whole lot of effort and do very well. And then I got into college, and that first semester really smacked me around a little bit. I had to drop all of my classes except one, and the one class that I kept was weight training for football. Right, I was able to do that. I got an A in that, so that was my first semester. I had to drop. Let's see, what was it? It was like calculus 2, chemistry, and like an advanced English class or something like that. And I had to drop all of them because I was terrible. So I did college for a few more years. I was going for a nursing degree. I wanted to be a nurse. I'd worked as an EMT for a while, and while I was going to college, I was also working as a cook. So I was literally like a fry cook, like the most I'm going to be a writer profession that there is. And I remember one day I just kind of fell out of love with this idea of being a nurse. I didn't want to go to work every day and see people at their worst. I didn't want to just go in and see suffering every single day. I'm a very upbeat, positive person, and I just knew that that was going to drag me down. And so hats off to people that do that every single day. Y'all are incredible. And it's not something that I could do. So I was kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do. This is also after I got all my prerequisites done and I was applying to different nursing schools and I got denied from like all of them. It was just denial letter after denial letter after denial letter. And I was like, dude, come on. And so I was just kind of spiraling a bit. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't even feel like I want to be a nurse anymore. And my girlfriend at the time, who is now my fiance, said, hey, I got this ad in my Instagram feed. You should check it out. You're a good writer. This might be a good fit for you. And it was an ad for a copywriting program. And I was like, okay. So I checked it out and I looked at it. It was get paid to write and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, sure, I'm a decent writer. Not like tons of natural ability there. It was definitely like something that I built up, but I enjoy writing. And so I took all of my savings that I had and I bought this online copywriting marketing course. And I remember my mother at the time was like, are you sure that's what you want to do? Are you sure you don't just want to stay in college and get a degree? And I was like, no, I'm going to do this internet marketing thing. And she was very untrusting of it. She's very happy about it nowadays, though. I'll tell you that. So I did it, and I dove into that. Um, I found success with that pretty quickly. After about a year of doing that, I was having consistent $10,000 months. A little bit after a year, but that was going very well. And I remember I had a client who he owned an agency, and he was like, "Hey, you write all this other stuff for me. You ever thought about writing a book? I'm wanting to write a book. You want to help me with that?" And I remember I had this philosophy, which I still kind of have, that says, never say no to a good opportunity, even if it scares you, because again, it's probably going to grow you if it scares you. So I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. I had no idea what I was doing. I was looking up YouTube videos. I was reading books on how to write books. I was listening to podcasts, and I struggle bust my way through that project, which ended up being pretty decent. And I remember I loved the process so much, and I loved getting so granular and in depth with one client. I was like, okay, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. So I pivoted my whole business. Took a bit of an income hit for the next 6 months because doing a ghostwriting business is much different than doing a copywriting marketing business. And then I built it up, and built it up one client at a time, and very happy with it.
Now it's built. Um,
Still being built. Business is never fully built, always still being built. But yes, you can look at it and be like, oh, that's a nice business. And I would respond, yes, it is.
and before you found, or when you look back at the life that led you to ghostwriting and your experiences along the way, are there certain stories that you feel you are uniquely set up to tell, where you're just in your zone? That's even though you're taking on someone else's voice, it's your kind of story.
I don't know if there's any particular type of story that I am particularly gifted to tell. Um, I never really like puff myself up as like, oh, I have this backstory and this is why I'm so good at this. I don't really have that. I just, you know, face down in the keyboard and just kind of did the work until I was good at it. But I don't think there's really any one particular type of story that I'm particularly gifted to tell. I think that's part of one of the skills you have to develop as a ghostwriter. You have to be kind of a chameleon. You have to take on this other person's personality and be able to think like them and write like them. Sometimes that will put you in a position where you have to maybe say some things you're like, I don't really believe this, but this person does, and I'm writing their book, so I'm gonna write it. I wrote a memoir for a politician who was very loved by his audience, and but in private conversations with him, I was like, "You're kind of a stuck-up person. You're not a fun person to talk about or to talk with. Very self-grandizing and stuff like that. Like whatever." And I don't believe in a whole lot of stuff that you're telling, but this is your story. This is your book, not mine. I'm being paid for my expertise as a writer, not for my opinions. So that's something you have to think about. If you even want to open yourself up to writing books that maybe aren't of your persuasion or your opinion and stuff, which can be a very growing thing. It can be cool to take someone from the other side of the aisle or something and Learn very, very intimately what their opinions are, what their beliefs are about something that maybe clash with yours a little bit. And it's a good growing opportunity a lot of the time. But yeah, being able to be a chameleon and take on another person's sort of worldview and stuff is a big, and leave yours at the door, right? Is a big skill for a ghostwriter to have.
On the client side of things or the author side, how does somebody who has a great story or an interesting business idea they want to share with the world, how do they start working with a ghostwriter? What does that look like?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Um, First of all, before you even think about hiring a ghostwriter, think about what do you want from your book. If you own a business and you want to write a book to grow your business and grow your brand and stuff like that, perfect. You probably do want to hire a ghostwriter. If you don't have the time or you don't want to do it yourself. If you're just writing a memoir because you want to give it to your kids and you want to give it to your grandkids, you probably don't need a ghostwriter who charges tens of thousands of dollars to ghostwrite that book for you, right? You can probably do that one on your own. You don't need to shell out that amount of money for it. But if someone who's looking for a ghostwriter, there's a couple different ways to do it. The biggest thing is vet who you're working for. Um, Again, like I said, if someone charges under $25,000, every once in a while you can find a diamond in the rough. But I've seen ghostwriters that charge a very substantial amount of money, and all they do is they'll take the transcripts from their conversations, they'll edit it a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, here's your book." It's like, no, the transcripts are the basis from which you write. It's not the thing. It's not the manuscript. So vet who you're working with. A lot of ghostwriters, I mean, the NDAs we sign are pretty rock solid. It's like one of the only professions where if someone's like, "Oh, I have an NDA, I can't talk about that," I actually believe them because I've seen the NDAs I've had to sign, and it's like you can't even reference the person's name. It's like, oh wow, okay. Um, but just I would go out. I would either try to find the ghostwriter first, or I would try to find a publisher that does everything. So there's plenty of publishers like you can go to. And I'm mostly in the hybrid and self publishing world. I don't do a whole lot of work with traditional publishers just because there's not a whole lot of value there right now for authors. So I usually do with work with hybrid publishers and self publishing experts. So I would go to maybe a publisher like Morgan James Publishing, Greenleaf Publishing, something like that. There's a company called Authors Unite that's really good. And you can come to them and say, "Hey, I had this idea for a book. I would love to get a ghostwriter to write this book with me." And they can then refer you to a ghostwriter that they think would be a really good fit. You can kind of get, they vet the ghostwriters that they recommend and stuff like that. Um, and so you can get a pretty reputable ghostwriter doing it that way. You can also go try to find a ghostwriter on your own. There's a lot of them on LinkedIn, I found. So you can type in ghostwriter into LinkedIn. You'll find a ton of them. You have to do a lot more vetting that way. Look at how they talk about books and stuff like that. And the biggest determining factor is really going to be getting them on a call and then talking about your book with them and really see which ones are just like, "Oh yeah, I can write those words. Oh yeah, I can write those words. Oh yeah, I can write that. I can write that for you." Versus, "Oh yeah, what are the goals for the book? How do you want to use this book? What are the goals in 3 or 5 years? If everything with this book goes perfectly, what do things in your business and life look like 3 to 5 years down the road?" Right? Those are the ghostwriters that know how to actually leverage the book, and they're going to be the ones that you probably want to hire.
And let's say now at this point, you've signed that NDA, they're working with you under extreme secrecy. Walk me through your workflow. Some people are going to think ghostwriting means that you write the book and they put their name on it, but you and I both know that's nonsense. Uh, what is it actually? What's the work like for you and for the author?
Yeah, yeah. I even I have like family members that are like, "Oh, you're ghostwriters. Like you write these books and do all the work, and then you just sell it to someone." Like every book that a ghostwriter works on is completely the author's book. It's their ideas, their opinions, their knowledge, their teaching, all that stuff. We just help them get it from their brain onto the page. Um, but yeah, if someone starts working with me, they get the contract, they get the invoice because I ask for a deposit up front, and then we will start talking. We'll have like a kickoff call where we really talk about. And usually this will happen before the invoice ever hits, but we'll talk about the goals, what they want the book to do for them, those sort of high level questions. What do you want your audience to know do and think when they're done reading your book, and a lot of these kinds of questions that gets the author really thinking about their book. And then we'll get the contract signed, get the invoice, first invoice paid, and then we'll move to the outlining. And so we will create the outline, and I always tell my authors the outline is there for to serve us. We're not there to serve the outline, right? It can change, it can evolve, it can develop as we write the book. It's not set in stone the moment we say, oh, the outline's finished. So we'll create the outline, talk about what the chapters are going to be. And this looks a little bit different depending on if it's like a memoir, or if it's a business book or something like that. It will look different, but we'll get the outline all finished up with, what the chapters are going to be, how they're going to be structured, all that good stuff. Sign off on that. I'll get the second deposit after that's finished. And then we start interviews. And interviews will be different depending on if it's, I work mostly with business books and memoirs. That's kind of the two things that I do a lot of. And so if it's a business book, we'll do an interview, right? We do the interview for chapter 1, right? All that good stuff. I'll start writing chapter 1 after I do that interview. And then we'll get to chapter number 2, and we'll do that interview, and I'll write that chapter. And we'll kind of go in that sequence of, we do the interview, I write the chapter. We do the interview, I do the chapter. And that usually works really well. With memoirs, I will do all of the interviews first before I start writing, because people have this funny little trait where they downplay a lot of the things that have happened to them or that they've accomplished, and they don't mention things that should definitely be mentioned in a memoir. So you can go, have the early childhood chapters, teenage chapters, young adult chapters, yada, yada, yada. And then you get into, the end of the memoir, and you're just having this conversation, this interview. And they mention, oh yeah, and when I was younger and I had that brief stint in the CIA, or whatever. And you're just kind of like, what? When did this happen? You didn't mention this to me. He's like, oh, it's not a big deal. I was like, no, that's kind of a big deal. I think we should talk about that. That's pretty cool. And so if you had been writing this memoir, with each interview you did, you'd have to go back and really heavily edit some things to include, oh yeah, by the way, this guy was in the CIA as as an agent or whatever. And so I typically will start writing once all the interviews are done, and I'll do it that way. So that's kind of how the difference happens. And then we do the first draft, and I tell everyone the first draft is messy. It's going to be ugly, right? The first draft is to just get all of our ideas on the page so we can look at it and we can say, okay, let's take this story and move it from chapter 3 to chapter 6. And, I think chapter 7 should actually be chapter 3. And I think we should put more teaching material here. And really explain this further. And it's so we can get all the content where we want it and really finalize the structure of this book. Then I'll go back through and clean it up and write the actual final draft that actually looks like a presentable book. And then at that point, working with me is done. They'll pay me after the first draft, and they'll pay me after the second draft. I usually take my payments in 4 installments. But that can be flexible. I'm flexible with that. And then we'll have the final manuscript. And at that point, a lot of ghostwriters will be like, all right, adios. My job here is done. Good luck with your manuscript. And then a client will just sit with this Google or Word doc on their computer for years because they're like, I don't know what to do with this thing now. So once I'm done writing the manuscript for the client, I kind of take on this advisory role. I'm like, okay, what route publishing do we want to do based on your goals? And I'll either connect them with publishers that I've built relationships with. If they want to do a self-publishing launch, I can connect them with cover designers, ISBN people, all the different types of editors, marketing, book launch people, all these people that I've built relationships in the industry. I connect them with all those people, so I make sure that my clients have an actual book that is launched by the time they are done working with me. Even after they're done working with me and they have their book launched, I'll still check in and be like, hey, there's a conference coming up. Would be a great fit for you. Submit your book to them, and stuff like that. Which is the cool part about ghostwriting is you get to build these really awesome, deep relationships. Because typically a book, that's anywhere from 4 to 6 months on average. And when you're interviewing them, you're getting pretty deep on a lot of stuff. So you're building these really cool, really genuine relationships with your clients, which I really enjoy. So that's typically what the workflow looks like for me from a 30,000 foot view.
And once the book is out there and it's done and it's in the world, or actually before the book is out there, you've said that telling people I'm writing a book is kind of the ultimate networking hack, and that there's a lot of upside to that.
Oh yeah. because it gets people excited. Because think about any industry, right? Literally any industry. Now think about the top people in that industry, right? The big, the big league guys, the heavy hitters, right? Do they have a book? Probably, right? Think about any of the big people in any industry. Yeah, they probably have a book, especially in the world of entrepreneurism. And so a book is like this huge credibility and authority builder. And sure, I tell my clients, while we're writing the book, tell everyone that you're writing a book. You're excited about it, right? It leads to a lot of really cool opportunities. Like, some speaking conferences, they won't even let you speak unless you have a book to have at the back of the room. So having that book it's a big thing. It opens doors to different rooms. So telling everyone that you're writing a book, but also using the book writing process itself as a way to network. This is actually something that I will do for my clients. I'll ask them like, hey, who are some big names in your industry that you would love to feature in your book? And they tell me. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a ghostwriter. I'm writing this book for so-and-so. And we think you're such an expert in this field. We would love to feature you in the book. Is that something you'd be down for? And they say, yeah, sure. Because who doesn't want to be featured in a book, right? And so we'll sit down and I'll interview them for 10, 15 minutes. And this does a couple of things. Number one, makes the book better, right? Books are better when you have outside experts and stuff like that going on into them. Makes the book better. Number two, it networks my client with them, right? They think, oh, this is a really cool individual that you're writing this book for. I would love to connect with them. Okay, cool. I'll facilitate that for you guys. And so now I've networked with my client. I've networked my client with a big name in his industry. Awesome, cool. And thirdly, it networks me because they hear that I'm a ghostwriter, and then they're like, "Oh, well, I've been wanting to write a book. You want to put something on the calendar?" And I say, "Yes, I do." But yeah, writing a book is a very, very powerful networking tool. Even before it's done, just telling people that you're writing a book, because people, what's the statistic? It's like 85 or 93% of people say they want to write a book, and 3% actually do. Like that. So if you say, oh, I'm writing a book, it's instantly kind of interesting. Like, oh, what's your book about? What do you do? Tell me about it.
Cool. Um, what's on the horizon for you? What are you working towards? What's something you're excited about at the moment?
Yeah, I so I still have the ghostwriting projects coming in. Those are nice. I'm at that like golden stage of business where I have a lot of referrals coming in, and that's kind of like the main source of clients for me in business, which is awesome. But I've also noticed like when I was doing marketing consulting and working with clients like that, now as a ghostwriter working with clients like that, I really enjoy the conversations with people and sort of like the coaching aspect of things. So I've kind of developed that into its own separate offer that I'm really enjoying. I'm taking on different people, different writers who want to explore ghostwriting. Maybe they come from copywriting, freelance writing, whatever. And they're like, hey, I want to do this ghostwriting thing. I do like one-on-one coaching with them to show them how to be a ghostwriter, a well-paid ghostwriter, not just someone who charges $500 for a full book on Fiverr or Upwork or something like that. Yeah, I've had someone come to me like, hey, I have this book idea for you, man. You're gonna love it. And I'm like, cool. What's your budget? And they're like $700. And I'm like, not
Oh,
here.
man.
You're, yeah, you're.
Oh, tell your jokes elsewhere. Like,
Like you're about 100 times under where we need to be. But yeah, that's kind of on the horizon for me, developing some coaching, consulting offers. So I get to just like consult and coach my clients, not have to do the actual writing bits, but still enjoying the writing bits. I do a lot of, I make a lot of referrals to other ghostwriters now too, because I get, you can only work with I can only work with up to like 8 clients a year. If you're a really fast writer and you're good, you can probably do 10, 12. I see one guy did 15 in a year. That's a lot. So I stick around 8, but I get a lot more inquiries than just 8. And so I like to make lots of referrals and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of just what's going on right now. Fun place to be for sure.
and where can listeners find you?
Oof. LinkedIn, probably a good place. All my other little buttons you can click on are there. I mean, you can find me on all the social medias. If you find me on social media, you'll notice that I try for a little while on social media, and then I give up, and I try again, and then I give up because I just don't like social media that much. But I also know how powerful a tool social media is, and so I'm like, you got to do it, Ryan. You got to throw some posts up on Insta, and then I do it for like a week, and I'm like, I don't like this, and I stop. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me. I have a not an awesome website, and it's actually more for the coaching offer at this point than it is anything else, because I've built my whole ghostwriting business up just by referrals and connections and relationships. So my website doesn't even reflect my ghostwriting at all. But yeah, LinkedIn be a good place to connect.
Ryan, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was fun being here, man.
If you have an epic story, I'd love to hear it. You can find me at Daily Prose or on LinkedIn. My links and Ryan's are in the show notes. Thanks for listening.